Hello everybody, this is Question Mark, and I am here in September with a set booster box of Dominaria United. Yep, set booster box. It may have been a while since you've seen me. They didn't actually put out any set of Magic in August. They took the month off for my birthday, I suppose. That's fun, that's fair. But yeah, I'm glad that I was able to afford at least a set booster box. Wasn't able to afford a collector booster box this time for everybody. Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get back more into that at some later date. You know, these videos don't pay the bills or anything. But I also have a bunch of secret layers that I may be opening on stream soon, assuming that I don't have to sell them for cash. But I have a bunch of secret layers, and maybe I'll be opening them in the next video. You'll have to check and see. Stay subscribed. And a lot of you who have been on my channel before know that the vibe here is very casual, and that's what I intend to be going for here today. Is I like to treat these videos like a chat. Like, we're just buds, we're hanging out, we're opening some packs, and we're looking at some Magic cards. And we're just chatting about them. And so for anyone who's new, that's the vibe that I'm going for. I'm not terribly concerned about price. I'm not terribly concerned about, you know, whatever else. So I am a Commander player first and foremost, although, you know, I do tend to do like pre-release events. It's pretty much all Commander for me. So when I'm analyzing cards, I might say every once in a while, oh, this seems good for limited or something, but I don't know. this might be good in standard or modern, or I don't know. What I know is Commander, and I've been playing Commander for over a decade. I've been playing Magic for over 2 decades, so I think I know a thing or two about those formats. Real quick, I just want to show you, at the event that I was at for the pre-release the other day, I did win a promo pack. And I remember they gave me my choice of promo packs between basically every set in Standard, every set for the last, like, 2 years or so. And I went, well, you know, what I would really, like, best case scenario, I'd love to get a promo stamped Tri-Land from New Capenna. I'm going to take a chance on that. So sure enough, I got the New Capenna pack, and I open it up. What do I find? Xander's Lounge with the promo stamp on it. So, very happy about this. I don't currently have a like Grixis deck, a blue, black, red deck, but I mean, I will at some point. Also, the promo Rumor Gatherer is neat and cool and good, and I would play it in a deck, but also my friend Adrian I have with me here today.
Hi, I go by Happy Batty on the internet.
That's right. She has a deck that this is perfect for, so I'm probably going to trade this to her, because I like to see the cooler cards that I find actually get use, so if I'm not going to use them, I'll trade them to somebody who will. And then I also got this by invitation only, which I don't really care about in particular. I hear that there are some decks where that is kind of the board wipe you want, but I don't have any such decks, so I don't know, it's whatever. Also, one of the reasons why I was adamant about somehow, anyhow, getting my hands on a box of Dominaria United is because box toppers. The box toppers are all legendary creatures, so they can all be your commander, and they're all new versions of old characters from the original Legends set. And a lot of these are really interesting. Some of them are pretty narrow, but in a good way, you know. So, like, one of them cares about archers, and it's Archer Tribal. We've never had a viable Archer Tribal deck before. Do we now? Probably not. But, I mean, you could try, and it could be fun. So, I love that, and I really wanted one. I would really love to have, like, all of them, but, and you know, normally if you miss a legendary card in a box like this, you can go back and buy a single, and hopefully it's not like the most sought after card from that set, and you can pay a couple bucks. No big deal. But these ones, since they're box toppers, I'm not sure if there's some. If I want to get like Torwalki, or if I want to get Jedit Ojanin Mercenary or something, you might have to pay a pretty penny for it. So I would really love to open at least one to get the ball rolling. Here's hoping it's one I like. Rasputin the Hydromancer. It's not one that I like. I think my number one that I was hoping for was Zira the Golden Sting, because the Insect Assassin seems really cool to me. Hey, focus up. Focus up. No? Okay, well, there.
Things are too shiny.
Mm-hmm. Well, who knows? I think there are focus ranges on this or something where it's like not quite the spot's going to focus, but whatever. Rasputin the Hydromancer, I believe, was originally Rasputin Dreamweaver, but it turns out Hydromancer is a term for dream magic. I learned this from Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. In any case, a colorless, a white and a blue for a legendary creature human wizard. He's a 4/1. Actually, wow, 4/1 for a 3-mana white and blue wizard. You don't see that every day. When Rasputin the Hydromancer enters the battlefield, put a dream counter on it for each opponent you have. So in Commander, usually 3. Each opponent creates a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Uh-oh, they get goblins? Tap, remove 1 or more dream counters from Rasputin, add that much colorless. Okay, so you can tap it for 1 colorless, 2, or 3, but you have to remove the counters. Or you can tap it and remove a dream counter from Rasputin to create a 2/2 white knight creature token with protection from red. So that's how he deals with the goblins that he gives out. Also, if you look at these characters' masks, these are like soldiers of Tivadar, who back in the day was a character who really hated goblins, a real goblin racist. Protection from red, and I think like when you cast him, you destroy a goblin, some stuff like that. So Rasputin apparently works with the goblin haters, and he can make some colorless mana. I don't see this as particularly exciting, and especially not because it's a enter the battlefield effect that gets you a few counters, and then you're done. So then he's just a 4/1 sitting around. So I assume that if you did want to play this as your commander, the idea would be then to let Rasputin die, and then just cast him from the command zone again, and then get more goblins and get more knights, and then do it again. But unlike somebody like Marath or the dragon that makes kobolds, escaping my mind at the moment, there's a million cards. It doesn't really benefit you more when it comes in. Like if it said put a dream counter on it, a number of dream counters on it equal to the amount of mana you spent to cast it, then that would be cool. But it doesn't. So I don't like this card, and if you do, cool, great. I'm happy. I'm glad you like it. I opened it though. Happily trade it to you. Also, to anyone who hasn't seen one of my videos before, you know that I do talk a lot. I'm going to be talking constantly through this video about the cards that I'm opening, but I'm not going to linger near as much as I did on Rasputin just then. He's a very special boy since he was my box topper legend, but I generally talk about the cards that I have something to say about. I'm not going to read every single one, obviously that would get kind of crazy, but I am going to read the ones that I'm not personally familiar with, and so would like to just know what they do. I'll read them out loud and try to give a little analysis of it. Though I did already play these in pre-release, and I have looked over the set, brainstorming for commander decks and stuff already, so I know a lot of the cards in the set pretty well. But I'll start skimming past commons more and more. So this may be a long video, but I hope to not bore you too much to tears, because I'm not going to be just spinning my wheels. I'm going to try to have some insight. I don't know, maybe you'll learn something, maybe you'll just enjoy hearing the sound of my voice. I hope you do, because we're here. Alright, so these are set boosters, so of course they start with art cards. I don't recognize this art. Oh, come on, focus. Wow, okay. I had a hard time focusing on that. This is from Furious Bellow. Okay. Maybe that's a common or something. But these lands. These lands, come on, focus again. There. I think that's good. these are gorgeous, and I would love to get more of these in foil. I might end up building a couple of decks based on Dominaria Legends, Zera, the Golden Sting being one of them. I've got a couple others that I'm thinking about. And if so, I'm going to be glad, to play these lands specifically. I hope to get some foils, but even the non-foil ones are beautiful. We got Llanowar Stalker, 1/1 Elf for 1. Seems fine. I think actually we didn't even play it in draft. Yeah, it gives a tiny little bonus. Actually, it doesn't seem fine. I'll take it back. I'll be kind of harsh on these things. Impulse, on the other hand, is pretty great. Let's see, this is a reprint of a card from quite a ways back in the day, something in the mid-90s. I didn't really play it much back then, and I don't play it much now. I'm not much of a blue player, but I understand that this is a bit of card selection and card draw that is above average in terms of usefulness these days. I printed a lot of cards apparently kind of like it, but not one quite as good as Impulse. So, neat. And if someone opens a foil or something, then, who knows, that could be worth something. The common version of it, of course, nothing. Also, I'm wondering if the focus issue has a little bit to do with maybe like a smudge on my camera lens or something. So I probably should edit this, but I usually don't. I'm gonna just, yeah. Here we go. Wipe off the lens a bit.
Yeah, that might help.
Might help. Okay. So, Gitu Amplifier was actually great in draft, and it's probably going to be great in a red-blue Spellslinger deck, because it's a 2-mana 1/2 that gets +2/+0 whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell. So if you're doing some Magecrafty, casting spells over and over again thing, +2/+0 is a pretty good boost. And that spell that you're casting could be taking blockers out of the way or giving this flying or who knows. And then you're hitting for, a fair amount of damage. Even in Commander, this damage can add up. Because in Commander, you could cast like 3 spells in a turn, and then that's 6 extra damage, so 7 total. And you're mostly using those spells to clear the way so that you can hit people with this. I think it's good. And then the kicker cost. So you can get it out on turn 2, and then you've got a creature that can buff. But if you get it out later, that kicker cost, return a creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. I mean, I know it's unsummon, and unsummon's like 1 mana, but throwing it onto a spell that's already useful, I think this is great. Okay, to be fair, I don't know if this is going to make the cut in any Commander decks, but it has its usefulness for sure. Shore Up. This card also seems really good to me. Come on. There we go. 1 blue for an instant. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains hexproof until end of turn. Untap it. Is this like the ultimate protect your creature spell in blue now? 1 mana, just +1/+1 hexproof and untap it. There's so much this can do. Honestly, I think this is going to see Commander play. If your Commander taps to have an effect, if your Commander is like the centerpiece of your deck, as it is with many, if not most, then 1 mana is exactly how much you want to be paying for it. Because, personally, I'm not much of a instance player, I'm not much of a counterspell player, so I don't like to be up to shenanigans like that very often. But I know that that's just how some cards work, that's how some commanders work. And what I like to do, though, if anytime that you tap out, people know what you're doing. Anytime that you tap out except you leave 2 blue open, people are going to guess that you've got counterspell. But what is going on here? Okay. You know what? I think maybe it's my playmat, actually. It's trying to like focus on the playmat and then not the card.
It's not quite flat. Maybe the playmat's too busy?
I think the playmat might be too busy. You know what? I think I'm going to also switch playmats here. So I didn't do a lot of preparation, I guess. But just to finish what I was saying there, yeah, I think... Oh, right. You can leave 1 mana left open and look like an accident. Really look like you're not up to anything. And then bam, you got Shore Up. You protect your creature. So I think this card is really, really good, actually. But yeah, let's try... I have a playmat on top of a playmat here. I'm just going to remove the top one. Because, yeah, I think it is too busy, and my phone's trying to autofocus on it.
Yeah, and this one's a little less busy. And it's
Yeah.
super cute because it's mine.
Yes. Oh, well,
just flatten
you
it out
can
a little
barely
bit.
see the rat, but yes.
Yes, there's a rat amongst a bunch of skulls.
Okay.
And it looks very cute.
Oh, yeah, the focus is working better now, I think. Yes. Wonderful. Okay. So,
Okay, that's
passing on past shore up here. Protect with the Negotiators. So there's a lot of spells in this set that just, like, make soldier tokens as a kicker thingy. So, I was thinking about the other day, there's some decks like Balmor that whenever you cast an instant, it makes all your creatures get +1/+0. I think, I'm just going to show this real quick, there's also cards like Kaza, who cares about the number of wizards that you control. And there are others that, like, boost all your wizards and stuff. I think spells like this are pretty good. There could be a deck that plays it anyway. I think that it's good enough that in the right deck, it could be worth playing. Despite being an uncommon from a standard set. Baird. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So, on the one hand, I like a 2-mana 2/2. And I like creating creature tokens because they can go wide. The number of creatures that you have can really amplify the power of certain effects that, like, boost all your creatures. And so this is a creature token generator. But it triggers at the beginning of your end step. So that means it can trigger once on your turn and then not on your opponent's turn. So once per, like, go around. That's not very many tokens. That's a pretty slow token producer. So would I want this as my commander? Almost certainly not. Would I want this in the 99 of a red-white soldier tribal deck? If that exists, yes. Maybe there isn't a red-white soldier commander, in which case maybe he's what you do, but I don't know. It seems like kind of a stretch. I think this card is okay, but not appealing commander material or in the 99, because the thing that it's best at is too narrow. It's best when the soldier tribe matters. This card's pretty good. In fact, what was I just saying about making 1/1 white soldier tokens? Like, the last 3 cards are almost good enough, and do that. This has flash, and is 2 mana, and is a 1/1 soldier that makes a 1/1 soldier. That's a pretty good rate. So once again, if we're thinking that there's a soldier tribal deck that can be pulled out of here, this card's nice, especially if it's got some go-wide stuff, like it makes all your creatures get +1/+1, or gives them all flying or something. That can really add up. So this is another card that may be a little weak generally for Commander, but with enough synergy, I think it's good enough. Oh, now this is cool. Okay, I got my first stained glass card. It's not foil, but we've got Zar Ojanin, Scion of Afrava. 3, a green and a white for a legendary creature, Cat Warrior. I know someone who likes cats. He's a 4/4 for 5, and he has Domain. Whenever Zar Ojanin, Scion of Afrava, becomes tapped, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with toughness less than the number of basic land types among lands you control. So, on the one hand, you know, my friend here, Happy Batty, has has a green-white cat deck, and has a green-white-red +1/+1 counters deck, and yet still, I think this card doesn't make the cut for either of them. It doesn't have any keyword abilities like Trample, First Strike, Forest Walk, Vigilance, Lifelink, any of that. It's a 5-mana 4/4, so it's under curve on its own, and its only ability, its domain ability, does not help itself at all. It doesn't put a counter on itself unless, what, you have the full domain, all 5? And even in that case, it only puts 1 counter on it. Because if it was a 5-mana 5/5 with no other abilities to begin with, I still wouldn't play it in any deck. So it's only good if your domain starts really accumulating and you're playing lots of small creatures. That's just asking too much before this card becomes decent. So unfortunately, I think this card actually sucks. And I wish it had something like Lifelink on it. Or First Strike. He's got a sword. He could have First Strike. Or you could even just take like a mana off, but I don't know. And plus, imagine this as a commander. Ugh, your domain can only be 2. So you could put it in the 5-color domain decks, but it's underpowered for those. So unfortunately, this is a card that's kind of dead on arrival. Bummer. Oh, okay, we got another stained glass card. You know, this is cool considering that we're doing, you know, a set booster. We're getting, you know, a little higher quality, fewer commons and stuff like that. Nael, Avazoa Aeronaut, something like that. She's an elf scout in 2 colorless, a green and a blue. For a 2/4 with flying, she has domain. Whenever Nael Avazoa Aeronaut deals combat damage to a player, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Put up to 1 of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom in a random order. Then if there are 5 basic land types among lands you control, draw a card. This card kind of sucks too. Like, really, if you have a domain of 4, this card is still not worth it. You look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 on top, and put the others on bottom. That's not a very powerful effect. If you draw it, well, that only happens when you have all 5 basic land types. And if you have all 5 basic land types, you could be casting much more powerful things than this 4-mana 2/4. It's got flying, sure, but, like, it also has to deal combat damage to a player in order to do anything relevant. So, it doesn't do anything on the first turn. On the second turn, it deals a whopping 2 damage, and only if your opponent doesn't have any flying or reach blockers, and didn't feel like it was a big enough threat to bother spending a removal spell on, which they won't, because it's not good. Yeah, I'm sorry, hot take. If anyone, you know, is a big fan of Nael, the character that I believe they just invented shortly ago, I think you're more likely to be a big fan of the Avazoa, an old card that was like a jellyfish kind of thing, which I think we're seeing like the purple tentacles of in this art. Oh yeah, you can see it a little bit. They look like clouds with purple tentacles coming down. They're jellyfish, basically. So yeah, bummer once again. Oh, and once again, imagine this as its own commander. Imagine trying to play this as a commander. Your domain only ever gets to 2. You can play Urborg in here and get it to 3 if you're lucky. God, it's such a bummer that they printed a number of these uncommon commanders that have domain and are just bad in every scenario you can imagine. I guess it's good in limited. Maybe. I don't know. Karn Silex. Okay, so we get a mythic rare. This is one that I opened at the pre-release. And it's kind of weird because I just watched a like lore video about you know, this set, and it was showing how Karn Silex is just the Golgothian Silex from way back in the day that he found. So this is his now. All right, we've renamed it. But also, it gets destroyed in this story. I guess, you know, we do exile Karn Silex. But, yeah, just as a flavor situation, it's kind of weird that it's acting like it's a different Silex, and that storyline kind of went nowhere, and it didn't end up mattering. Oh, well, so from a gameplay standpoint, 3 mana enters the battlefield tapped. I mean, this starts to feel a little bit like Navinral's Disc, if you remember way back in the day. Players can't pay life to cast spells or to activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. Whoa. Okay. So, I mean, that shuts off things. This is kind of a hate bear situation, you know, or a stacks piece or something. I don't know. It shuts off certain things. Does it shut off the things that are relevant to you? Well, some things that it shuts off. Fetch lands. You have to pay life in order to sack a fetch land and go get another land. Can't do it. Your fetch lands are worthless until Silex is gone. You can't cast Force of Will for free because you have to pay a life for Force of Will. People forget that sometimes. It's not just a free spell. And you don't just have to exile a blue card from your hand. You have to pay a life. And this says you can't. There are numerous other abilities like this. The weird thing is that it like sculpts out this weird like specific thing that people can't do, but so it's like it's powerful, but you also never know how powerful it is because, well, if it comes to casting spells. If it comes to activating abilities, they could have it on the battlefield. But, like... ugh. So, it's hard to read how powerful this is really going to be. Because I think it's going to randomly shut off a portion of people's spells and abilities. But it could be a small portion. I don't know. Anyway, the last thing is X, tap, exile Karn Silex. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less. Activate only as a sorcery. So people are saying that reminds them more of like Pernicious Deed. And that one I think is actually pretty good. This is the part of, I mean, this is the reason why you play the card. It's a board wipe. And it's a board wipe that can destroy, I hesitate to say small things, but like things from a certain size and down, right? So if your deck has a high mana value on average, or if your deck doesn't play a lot of permanents, like non-land permanents, then this could be really good. And then there are also, of course, other situations where you use Teferi's Protection, or you flicker your stuff, or whatever. But, so what kind of potential does this have? It's hard to judge. I think this could see Commander play. But it's just hard to know when it's the right time. Oh, okay, here's an angle. Here's how I think of it. This isn't a card that tells you as much what to play with it, as much as it tells you what to play it against. So it's hard to know what deck is the right deck to put Karn Silex in, instead of what deck to play it against, and you don't know who you're playing against. So for me, this might not make the cut in any of my decks, because I'll never know looking at my deck if this is a Karn Silex deck. Alright. Oh, and the one guaranteed foil I get is Yavimaya Sojourner, an 8 mana 4/6 tree folk with domain. It costs 1 less to cast for each basic land type among lands you control. There's a whole cycle of those in this set, and strange that the green one is one of the worst ones, because I think all the others have a keyword ability on it, like Trample or Menace or something. Green didn't get any of that, and maybe it's like bigger or something to make up for it, but it doesn't feel like it. This card blows. And then I got an arena thing. Okay. So, with every pack, I'm going to try to speed up a little bit. Let's see. We got Phyrexian Missionary as the art card. And we got a foil Plains, but it's not the stained glass ones. These cards are fine, but dang. Okay, then I got... oh, Shadow Prophecy. This is likely going to see some play. I actually think I am going to put this in a commander deck or two, and I'm recommending Happy Batty do the same. Shadow Prophecy is 2 and a black for an instant, that's a big deal to me, with domain. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Put up to 2 of them into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom, in your graveyard, and you lose 2 life. Excuse me. So I was recommending this for her Windgrace deck, because the domain is usually going to be 3, which means you look at the top 3 cards of your library. You can put up to 2 of them into your hand, and then 1 into your graveyard. The 2 life and commander, kind of inconsequential. The instant speed, amazing, because it means you can keep up mana that you're threatening to use removal with, or whatever other kinds of actions. You can do it on your turn if you just need cards now, but if you don't just need cards now, then yeah, you can keep the mana open and do it later. So I love when a good spell just happens to be an instant. And in her deck in particular, since it's a Windgrace deck, it cares about lands in the graveyard. So this can allow you to put a land in the graveyard, 2 lands in the graveyard, 3 lands in the graveyard, whatever combination you need. I mean, you can only keep 2 of them in your hand, but you can put all 3 in the graveyard if you want. And, of course, if you're playing this in more than 3 colors, you can look it up to 5 cards. But you keep 2, that's always an option, as long as you have at least 2 colors. So don't play this in a monocolor deck. I don't think I need to tell you that. Play it in a 2-color deck. 3-color decks, that's the sweet spot, where I think this is easy to do and good. You play it in more than that, okay, it's obviously good. It's gravy. But I also recommend it especially in Graveyard Matters decks. So I might play this in my green-black elves. That's the 2-color, and I want elves in my graveyard. I might play this in my Edgar Markov Vampires deck, because I want cards that draw multiple cards and I don't care about something's going by the graveyard, but I think it's even better in her Windgrace deck. Jaya's Fire Nado, I'm just going to say I don't think it's very good. 5 mana for 5 damage, who cares? Lightning Strike, I mean, for Commander, terrible. Terrible card. For Limited, it was great, because, I mean, even Lightning Bolt for an extra mana is still good in Limited, but, yeah, not for Commander. I also need to kind of, like, separate out these cards a little bit here, I think. Okay, I'm going to go kind of like this, commons, and then like lands and art cards I think will go up there. Okay, so this common stack is going to end up being huge, and that's uncommons. I'll go with like foils, rares and mythics, showcase cards. I think that'll do it. Okay. So, common there. Muria's Outrider was amazing in our two-headed giant event. 5 mana for a 4/4 with reach, an elf archer. So already, 5 mana 4/4 with reach. Not only is that like kinda good, but in red, it's particularly good. And I fell for it. I was a victim of the what that has reach. This is definitely the surprise reach card of the set, because it surprised me. Because across the table, I forgot that it's an archer. It's someone riding on a Kavu or something, and from far away, I didn't notice the bow. Anyway, when Muria's, who knows how to pronounce it for sure, Muria's Outrider enters the battlefield, it deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control. In my experience, in draft, and in sealed, I guess, actually, people are usually sneaking a couple of those double lands in there to get it up to 4 or 5 in most games. This was 4 every time that I played it. However, it says each opponent, and in Two-Headed Giant, that means you hit me and you hit my partner, both for 4. We took 8, and this got cloned, and we took another 8, and we did lose that game. That's the only game we lost, but yeah, so this thing pretty busted, honestly, in Two-Headed Giant sealed, but we may never see events like that again. So in other formats, this becomes much, much weaker, of course, depending on what your domain is. Would you play this? Okay, I wouldn't play this outside of a 5-color deck. Would you play this in a 5-color deck? Maybe one that plays Kiki Jiki or something, so that you can like make copies of it? But I don't know. Oh, we've got Tatiova, Steward of Tides, which the old Tatiova was one of the most powerful uncommon commanders of all time. It was just play lands, draw cards, gain life, everything you could want in Simic. It was just easy mode, though. It got super boring. But for green, green, blue, this is a 3/3 legendary creature Merfolk Druid. Land creatures you control have flying. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. This is much more interesting to me. It does something besides just like play lands, draw cards, gain life. Just like play the game of Magic and you win in every direction all at once for nothing. And it's in your command zone, so you just replay it if it dies. Like, that's just so easy mode. This clearly, like, you have to work for it a bit. And it does something like proactive. It's making 3/3s with flying that you can kill your opponents with. So yeah, I vastly prefer this as a design. I still don't think I'm going to build a deck with it because I'm not much of like a blue-green guy. This doesn't make me one. But yeah, I appreciate the designers on looking at Tatiova again and going, we can do something more interesting. And they did. Djinn of the Fountain was in theory one of the more powerful cards I got in my draft pool, but I never drew it. 4 blue for a 4/4 creature Djinn with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one. Djinn of the Fountain gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Exile Djinn of the Fountain, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, or scry 1. It's another card that seems really good if you're doing the old 1-mana cantrip kind of strategy, just playing lots of 1-mana instants and stuff that draw cards trigger this a bunch of times. It's basically got prowess. It can flicker itself in a pinch. It can scry one. I mean, it's 6 mana, though, so I don't know if this makes the cut in any deck of that style, even. Elvish Hydromancer. I forgot the... Oh! This is the one that makes a token that's a copy of a creature, which they did on the Maria's Outrider in order to hit us for another 8. So I hate this card, and I don't want to see it again. Seriously, though, there is probably a deck for this. Is it Riku of the Two Reflections, maybe? Because I think if you cast a spell with Kicker and then you copy it, is the copy kicked? I'm actually not sure about that. I'm usually really good with the rules, but I'm not sure about that one. Oh well. Tori Davenant, Fury Rider. So this is one we actually got 2 of in our sealed pool. We played them both, and they were fine. They were okay. Pretty good. A colorless 2 red and a white for legendary creature Human Knight. She's a 3/3 with Vigilance and Trample, which, I mean, a 4-mana 3/3 is underpowered. Vigilance and Trample, that pretty much makes it worth it. But then she does other stuff. When she attacks, all other attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Wonderful. Other red attacking creatures you control gain Trample until end of turn. And untap each other white attacking creature you control, giving them kind of reverse vigilance. So this card actually does seem pretty good. If you're playing a deck that includes red and white and has a night tribal theme, this seems pretty great. In fact, when I was talking earlier about the red-white guy who makes soldier tokens, if this would seem good in that deck, or vice versa, perhaps. But, yeah, solid aggro red-white commander. Baru Wormspeaker. I thought that this was... Yeah. This is a commander deck exclusive card. Dominaria Commander. And so it has a slightly different set symbol compared to Tori here. This is the main set, and that's the commander set, which has the coalition symbol like inside it. Okay. Because Baru here is like the son of Kamal, or maybe grandson, I don't know. He's there riding on some giant green serpent, and he's a Wormspeaker now. So 4 mana for a 3/3. Worms you control get +2/+2 and have trample. 7 and a green and tap to create a 4/4 green worm creature token, but this ability costs X less to activate, where X is the greatest power among worms you control. This seems really cool. I don't know that this deck is any good, but this seems really fun. And it seems like a commander that you could maybe give to someone new and help them build something fun. And, I mean, it won't necessarily win very often, but it could really get going. It could make some big, powerful, stompy things and have some fun. So, I think this card's great. And it's a rare. And here's a second rare, Vodalian Mindsinger. What am I looking at here? A colorless and 2 blue for a creature merfolk wizard. It has kicker of a colorless and a red, and or a colorless and a green. Vodalian Mindsinger enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it for each time it was kicked. Okay. When Vodalian Mindsinger enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature with power less than Vodalian Mindsinger's power for as long as you control Vodalian Mindsinger. So it's a merfolk, and merfolk are usually at their best in a merfolk tribal deck, but I've never seen a merfolk tribal deck that includes red before. So is this good in commander? Probably not. It can steal a small creature for a long term, but yeah, I mean, maybe it's good in standard. I don't know. But I'll pass. Oh, hey, then we got a worm. Probably the one the Baru likes. It's a 5 mana 5/4 with Vigilance and Trample. This is great, like, draft filler. You're going to be happy to get this out in Limited. And that's my foil for the pack. And I got a soldier token. Okay. What do we got here? We've got, oh, Shauna. Okay, cool. She's the daughter of Sisay, I believe, Captain Sisay? Yeah. And she's a good warrior. And I think I saw her in the latest episode of Game Nights. And I think She is a good commander, but she didn't really do well in that game. I don't know if that's Jimmy's fault. It's more likely just luck. Not every deck is going to perform in every game. So, Shauna, I'd love to see you again. I'm sure you're a good commander, actually. Love this swamp. Love it. Ugh, it's beautiful. I want it in foil. Magali Villeneuve. Oh, amazing. Bailoff Faith Bonder. Okay, hey, this is the first Enlist card to come up here. And, me with the hot takes here again. I hate it. I hate the Enlist mechanic. It's boring and bad. It's like Exalted, except your creatures can't block, and you can only use it once. With Exalted, you could have like 5 Exalted creatures, and that'd be great. With Enlist, if you attack with an Enlist creature, you can tap 1 non-attacking creature you control that doesn't have Summoning Sickness. So I thought at the least it could be a way of giving like pseudo haste, kind of, to a creature that's already been around. But no. When you do, add its power to this creature's until end of turn. I also thought that it added the power and toughness. It doesn't. So it doesn't trigger until this thing attacks. And when it does, it has to use an untapped, non-summoning sickness creature you control, and it only adds the power. This whole mechanic is bad and terrible. There might be one card. I think there's one rare in it that has like, also when you enlist, do 3 other things. That one might be good. But the rest of them, hate it. On the other hand, stun counters, love it. This card is great in limited. Putting 3 stun counters on it, keep in mind, that means it's tapped now. It's tapped next turn. It's tapped the turn after that. And it's tapped the turn after that. So it's not really, it's out of commission for 3 turns. It's more like it's out of commission for 4, because it includes this turn. And then a creature with stun counters on it, whenever it would untap, instead you remove a stun counter. And I did check, that does include if you have some alternate way of untapping creatures, like a 1,000-year elixir or something, you target a creature with a stun counter on it, and it doesn't untap, it just removes the stun counter. I think that's an excellent mechanic, though. This card, is it going to see play in Commander? Probably not. It's a sorcery. It targets 1 creature 1 time. It's 2 mana. All of those things are slightly below what you want for Commander. Ideally, this would be 1 mana, or this would be an instant. Or it would target like up to 2 creatures, or something. Oh, did I forget Scry 1? Because we forgot Scry 1 a lot. I forgot it. My opponents forgot it. We all forgot Scry 1. Because it just disappears in all this reminder text. But Scry 1! Yeah, I think this card is excellent in limited. Probably very good in standard, assuming that your opponent's not playing a go-wide deck. And I think the stun counter mechanic is great, and I love to see more of it going forward. Tattered Apparition is boring and lame. Yavimaya Steel Crusher is solid. I think there's a Unicorn that does something similar in white, but for enchantments. A 2-mana 2/2 that you can pay just a single colorless and sack it to destroy an artifact at instant speed is not bad. Having Enlist is just a little bonus. Enlist isn't a very good mechanic, but when it's thrown on practically for free, fine, okay, I might get some value out of that. This card's decent. Twinferno. This actually wrecked us at one point. 2 mana instant. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy, or target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. It turns out if the spell that you play after this one is some big sorcery, then yeah, getting 2 of them is brutal. So it's basically double a spell or double a creature. And obviously a lot of decks are focused on either instants and sorcery spells or creatures rumbling. So this would ideally go in a deck that's somehow divided among both, but those decks exist. Why am I thinking of like Calamax? But, commanders that have prowess-like effects. Commanders that get bigger and beefier when you cast instants and sorceries. Twinferno is amazing. Now, granted, you have to choose one. There's no version where you get both. But that means that it's viable in a lot of situations. Oh, I play Boros Charm in my Dinosaur deck because it can give double strike to my commander. This does the same thing for the same mana value, but doesn't require white. And can do something else. I mean, what's it going to copy in my dinosaur deck? Cultivate or something? But still, this card is actually really good and could see Commander play. Although there are a lot of other cards like it, so it's competing with a lot of other cards. But your deck may find that this is a slightly more versatile version of something that's already playing. So maybe play it. Then we've got Vohar Vodalian Desecrator. They are a blue and a black for a 1/2. Look at that font! Legendary creature, Phyrexian Merfolk Wizard. Yeah, it seems like in the past, Wizard of the Coast was kind of afraid to make the font smaller on the type line. But with the introduction of Phyrexian, they don't really have a choice. I don't think this is the first time that they've done it. I think there was some version of Niv Mizzet that was like Legendary Creature, Dragon, Wizard, and that was like a little bit too much. But in this set, there's like 8 Phyrexians that are too long and they shrink the text by a point or two. And honestly, I think that's fine. And it also opens it up for me as a casual card designer in my free time. I frequently try to put something on a card that's a little bit too big, and then it starts to squish it or something, and it just doesn't look like a Magic card when you start doing that until they normalize it. So, kind of a weird, unique little benefit for me on that, but it's a 1/2 for 2 that can tap to draw a card, then discard a card. If you discarded an instant or sorcery card this way, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So already, this is a Merfolk Looter with upside that actually drains your opponents when you discard spells. This actually does seem really good in a blue-black Spellslinger deck that wants to filter through. Maybe has a little bit of a Madness theme, a Flashback theme, Snapcaster Mages, I don't know, Self-Mill, something. And then for 2 and sacrifice Vohar Vodalian Desecrator, you may cast target instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard this turn. If that spell will be put into your graveyard, exile it instead, activate only as a sorcery. So it does have Flashback built right in. So yeah, I think that there are definitely decks out there that already exist that this slots into pretty nicely. And it could be a commander in a deck that was wanting to go, hunt for something specific. So cool card, cool design. Not my style, but I like it. Urtai's Scorn. I've heard different pronunciations of his name before. Urtai, whatever. 3 mana for an instant counter target spell is what it actually does, so it's cancel. But this spell costs blue less to cast if an opponent casts 2 or more spells this turn. So this is another situation kind of like Karn's Silex, where I can see how a lot of the time you will just be playing a colorless and a blue for counter target spell. So that does make it slightly better than Counterspell. Not just slightly better than Cancel, slightly better than Counterspell. And really, I think in Commander, where you want to be, you want your counterspells to be Counterspell or better. This can be that, but it relies on what your opponent's doing. They have to cast 2 or more spells in a turn, which in a lot of Commander situations is not that big of an ask, but you can't rely on it when you need it. You don't know that your opponent's going to cast a second spell when, maybe the first spell they cast in a turn is the one you want to counter. What can you do? You just gotta hope they have the extra mana open. So I don't think this card is that great. But, obviously in Limited it's good. In Standard it might be good. In Commander, I think that you cut this for, literal counterspell most of the time. Logomos Hand of Hatred. This is another one that I've been seeing different opinions on. And by that, I mean most people seem to think that it's good and I don't. It's a colorless and a black and a red for a 1/3 legendary creature human shaman. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. That part I think is good. Here's the part that we disagree on. Tap, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Activate only if 5 or more creatures died this turn. Now, I've heard some people saying 5 or more creatures, that's not that much. You cast a board wipe and bam, 5 creatures are dead. If you cast a board wipe, this guy's dead. So you gotta cast a one-sided board wipe. Well, that is hard. They tend to cost 5 mana at the least. You could do a Toxic Deluge for like 2, and then maybe 5 creatures die, but in Commander, some opponents play lots of 2/2s and 1/1s, but a lot of them play none, or next to none. So it's another thing where you can't really rely on having 5 creatures your opponents control to die. So then you've got to pack your deck full of creatures that you will kill yourself. Alright, I mean, obviously Aristocrats is a strategy that people do, but then you've got to wipe 5 of them out at once. So you can have your Goblin Bombardments and your Phyrexian Altars and stuff. But then if that's the case, is this really the most powerful thing that you could be doing by sacrificing 5 creatures? Well, no, but I guess the thinking is you can tap it and search your library for the most powerful thing that you could be doing with creatures dying left and right like this. And then you put it in your hand, then you still have to cast it. So if it's really that powerful, how much mana does that cost? 6, 7? I don't know. And then, personally, I also really dislike tutors. Because then it's like, alright, I found my thing that I do, and I played it, and now you guys, all creatures that come in die, and what can you do? Oh, I got the combo again, because my commander tutors. And it does the same thing the next game, and the same thing the next game, because the commander tutors. I don't like tutors generally, because not only does it make games more samey, but also, if you play it late in the game, maybe you know what you need. You need to go get your combo piece or something, and I'm not fond of combo. But if you play it early in the game, you might not know what you need at that moment, and then you end up with some decision paralysis, looking at literally every card in your entire deck, going, what do I need right now? I don't know. So, I don't like tutors in general. I think that they're unfun for myself and for my opponents. And then this is a commander that the main thing that it does is tutor. So I think this card, sadly, is going to lead to some really unfun decks. That like they start being fun, and then you activate Lagomos, and then the game's over. Maybe the next turn, probably the turn you do it. So I mean, it's going to be like, inviting people to a party, and then, you congratulate yourself, and then everyone else goes home. Najal the Stormrunner. This guy looks so much like Nicol Bolas. What the hell? The head shape and even the horn shape are very similar. Sure, this one's twisted on the left. But why is this a Freet Wizard look so much like Nicol Bolas? Is that an Easter egg? I don't think so, because the normal art for this card, not stained glass art, doesn't look like him. But it's a 5 mana 5/4, so that's pretty big. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. That's great. There's a handful of cards that do that now, and they're pretty cool. And being able to rely on that effect being in the command zone, so you can actually pack your deck full of sorceries and not worry about it, that's actually great. This can be a really good commander. And whenever Najal attacks, you may pay 2. If you do, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Honestly, this card seems like an excellent commander in a sorceries deck. You could build a straight-up sorceries deck because of Najal. And that's super cool to me. So, I don't have much else to say, but I think it's really cool. Ooh, Adarkar Wastes. Okay. So, the dual lands in a lot of sets are like the most valuable and most sought-after lands, whether they be shocks or fetches or fast lands or, untapped if you have 2 or more opponents' lands, whatever. Adarkar Wastes and the other Pain lands are trying to pull that duty in this set. I don't think it quite works. They held back on reprinting these for a long time, maybe hoping that reprinting the Pain lands would be worth something. And they are a bit, I don't know, $5 to $10 maybe. But a lot of newer players really don't like this deal 1 damage to you thing. And, I'm fine with it in decks that are like 2 colors at this point. But we've got so many other options for dual lands at this point as well, especially in the Innistrad block we just had. I think I do still play this in like a blue-white deck that's just blue-white. And there are even some cards that care about, like, you damaging yourself somehow. Your life total getting lower, or, when you get damaged to trigger something. But still, I'm underimpressed with Adarkar Wastes. Whoa, okay. Here's something that impresses me, though. I'm trying not to be negative about every card after all. I do love the set overall, and I love Magic. I love Commander. But 3 blue creature Phyrexian Sphinx, 4/3 flyer for 5. As an additional cost to cast blue permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost blue less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of blue mana you pay. Whenever you cast a blue permanent spell, draw a card. So if you're playing a mono blue or mostly blue deck that plays a lot of permanent spells, this is one of the best cards in your deck. Granted, you've got to pay life. And, if you're the kind of person who's like, oh no, paying life for things, I hate it. Well, this is doing that, but get over it. On the other side of the spectrum, if you're like, well, I wish I could pay more life. I wish it just was a Karik or something where it turned all my blue mana into Phyrexian mana. Well, it only does it for one of it. And it only does it for permanent spells. So maybe blue isn't the best color for one of these Defilers. I think the other Defilers are better in a lot of ways, though this one draws you a card. So it isn't a commander, can't be your commander. But dang, if you were to build around it, what if you play this in, the Flying Men deck with Edric, Master of Secrets or something? The one where your deck is full of 1 mana 1/1s with flying? How about 0 mana 1/1s with flying and draw a card on it? Ooh, I'd pay a couple life here and there for that. Hell yeah. This card definitely has its uses. Its decks. It's definitely going to see play in some commander decks, and I think that the other ones may see even more in colors like green that focus more on permanence, or white that can gain life, and both of those colors can gain life pretty well. And I love that I got this in foil. That's really cool. Okay, and then I got a card from the list, and it's Cast Down from the original Dominaria. 2 mana for an instant, destroy target non-legendary creature. Okay, well, I guess this is kind of good. It can destroy a creature for 2 mana at instant speed, and it's got a colorless in there, so it's not super hard to cast, but non-legendary. In 2022, half of all creatures are legendary. In 2025, 90% of all creatures will be legendary. They'll be like grizzly bears, and then everything else that you encounter will be like Goblin, whose name is Jimmy. And he's slightly better than a normal Goblin. We're already doing that, but geez. So this loses a lot of targets. Can't get your opponent's commander. I like that's an instant. But it's also, isn't it kind of worthless? Isn't it less than 50 cents, I bet? So, love to get cards from the list. Don't love getting like uncommons that I probably already have 10 of. Oh well. Holy crap, I have a lot of packs here. I might need to take an intermission on this one. You might need to take an intermission on this one. I've been going way too in-depth on these cards so far. My bad. Oh, we've seen that art. Okay. Oh, geez, we're coming up on an hour, and I am nowhere near halfway done. Yeah, we're going to need to take an intermission at some point. Okay, this card, though, saddens me. You see that? That's the Weatherlight. That's the Weatherlight completed. It's Phyrexian now. How did it happen? Why did it happen? No idea. I've watched multiple videos on Dominaria stories so far, and they just said, oh no, it's Phyrexianized. Okay. How? Why? I saw a video where they were talking about how there's the crew of the Weatherlight in this story. It wasn't Phyrexianized like before the set began. It was Phyrexianized in the middle of this story. When? How? Who did it? How long does this take? I figured it'd take days at least, weeks, months maybe, to Phyrexianize a character, a planeswalker or something. But no, apparently it can be done overnight or something.
Or maybe it was a slow process that it was just slowly becoming more corrupt, and people didn't notice until it was too late.
Oh, so like a seed was planted in it that grew over time and it was missed. Possibly. Yeah. Or maybe the storyline takes place over more time than I think it does. Not just a few days, but like maybe it does take place over months or a year or something. I don't know. But I'll tell you what's kind of sus is that there's Wrath Capuchin in this set, who is like the Herald of the Weatherlight or something. And he's standing on what looks like it's probably a normal Weatherlight, but it's hard to tell if it's maybe already Phyrexianized. And I'm wondering if Wrath is maybe a traitor, if he's a sleeper agent. Because Wrath is completely different than he was last time. Last time he cared about Flash, he cared about Historic. This time, nothing like that. Completely different. And in one of his art, he is on an ambiguous version of Weatherlight, because he's like looking over the edge of it, so you can't tell if it's Phyrexianized or not. And in his stained glass art, he has Phyrexians all around the outside of the art looking at him. So, did he give up the Weatherlight and like betray his father's memory? Was he corrupted somewhere in between? Was he captured? Was he killed? I don't know. No one's willing to tell me so far. I'll look into it though. Captain's Call. Kind of boring. Oh, I put an uncommon in the wrong place. There we go. Yeah, so I care about the lore of Magic. That's a big part of why this takes so long. Keldon Strike Team. I knew that Keldon Elves had kind of grayish-purple skin. I didn't know that Keldon Humans had grayish-purple skin too. So the only difference between an elf and human in Keld is their ears. Alright. Enters the battlefield if it was kicked. Create 2 white soldier creature tokens. As long as it entered the battlefield this turn, creatures you control have haste. I mean, this was good in draft. Okay. I've got to start moving through this a little quicker. I'm not going to read every comment going forward. This was kind of bad. This was kind of good because it's got trample. Shieldred's Restoration is one of the worst reanimation spells I've ever seen. Do not be fooled. 4 mana to return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield with a drawback is not good. Kicker for 3 in order to gain some life is also not good. This is a bad card. Radha. She's kind of good. I mean, at least you could play her in a more than 2 color deck and not be embarrassed, but don't play this as your commander. Warhost Frenzy. Whenever a creature you control dies this turn, draw a card. That seems to have potential. I didn't see this card before. Coalition Sky Knight. Seems pretty underwhelming. Urg! Spawn of Turg! Urg! Okay, I love this guy. And I'm glad that I got the stained glass version of it too. Black, green, legendary creature Frog Beast, a star 5. Its power is equal to the number of land cards in your graveyard. Yeah, he's a Forg. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card in your graveyard. And for black and green, sacrifice a land, you gain 2 life. Honestly, this guy is great in a lot of different ways. But I think he's probably best in like a Windgrace deck. Could be a decent commander. I mean, normally you look at one of these cards that has like a star on one side and you're like, oh no, it's always going to be 5 toughness. But at 3 mana, having 5 toughness is pretty great. And honestly, having 5 toughness always is kind of great. I mean, 5 is like the most that most spells can really get. If it's like deal 5 damage to each creature or all creatures get -5/-5, that's about the biggest that those kind of spells get, where you could just like lose them in a random board wipe that isn't literally destroy all creatures. So the 5 toughness here doesn't bother me, and in fact getting it out on turn 2 or 3 seems great. And then it really helps you put lands in your graveyard and gain you some life off of it. And then of course the rest of the cards in your deck are going to be taking advantage of the cards in your graveyard, besides just making him big, which you can give him some kind of trample or something. And yeah, this card's great and I love it. Oh, a Johnny! I got a Johnny! Now, we opened a Johnny in our sealed pool during the event, but we ended up agreeing that Happy Batty would keep a Johnny. She's the big cat person, after all.
Yeah, they got my boy a Johnny.
They got my boy!
Also, the best part, we also pulled a Jaya, and I played both of them in the same deck.
And we know now that a Johnny is the one who murdered Jaya. Such drama.
Do we know that for sure, or is it still just implied?
The videos are...
oh, yeah, that's right.
The videos we watched are canon.
Okay.
They're a little goofy in how they're presented, but they're canon. Excuse me. I had to take a bite. So, a Johnny Sleeper Agent. Here's the thing, though. I think the card's not good. Mostly because I think Completed, they were so afraid of Phyrexian mana, which they should be. And they were so afraid of Phyrexian mana, they put not just a drawback on it of if you pay the life, then the Planeswalker's worse. It doesn't just enter with 1 fewer loyalty, it enters with 2 fewer loyalty. And to me, that is too much. That makes this card bad, that makes Tamiyo kind of bad. Although I think Tamiyo is better than this. Yeah, I don't think I want to talk about it much more, because sadly, I don't think this card's good. And if it's worth something, great. I'll happily sell it or trade it or something. Now this is one of the craziest pieces of art on a Magic card. Wild. That is scary from the mind of someone who is twisted. And it's a saga with read ahead. I generally like these. It took me a while to figure out how these things are balanced. The fact that you can start on any chapter, but I figured it out. The first chapter is weak. The second chapter is a little stronger, and the third chapter is stronger yet. That's how you do it. So if you want to skip ahead to the strongest chapter, cool, but you miss out on the other 2 effects. They may be weaker, but you get more effects for 1 card. That's how you do it. So, that said, for 2 and a black, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, each opponent discards a card. There are certain decks that's good in, like Shirei. 2, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That's a little weak, but once again, there are certain decks that's good in, like Shirei. And then the third one, target opponent may sacrifice a non-land, non-token permanent. If they don't, they lose 2 life and draw a card. See, this one actually, I think, kind of breaks the mold a little bit from those others, where that last ability, I still think is not that strong. They get to choose what permanent they sacrifice, and sure, it can't be a land, which you wouldn't want to do anyway, usually, but you might be flooded, who knows. And it can't be a token, which is usually going to be like your easy sacrifice, so they have to make a little bit harder of a decision. But still, they get to choose what permanent they sacrifice, and if they sacrifice it. Because if they don't, they lose 2 life. That's no big deal. And you draw a card, that's not that big of a deal either. So I actually don't think this card's very great, but I love the art. And then, oh, I got the insect token. I love this insect token. This is one of the primary reasons why I want Zira as a commander. We need to nickname this kid. Something with B in the name. B.
Business bug.
Business bug?
I don't know.
I want it to be a little boy name.
Terrible names. It's Billy.
Billy.
Yeah, it's Billy.
Could be. I was thinking of like, if it was a girl bee, we could go with like Beatrice or something. But it's a boy bee, so is there a boy name that starts with literally the sound B, like B-E-E or something? B, or a girl's name could be Bianca, maybe. But I'm not thinking of a boy's name that starts with B. Oh well. Add our car waste. Yeah, whatever. Get out of here. Foil Island. Yay. The stained glass style Foil Island. I love it, and I'm so happy to get it, and it's definitely going into deck. Beautiful. Then we get Wooded Ridgeline. I'm actually surprised. I've gotten almost none of these in these packs so far. I guess in draft packs you get a lot more commons. In fact, maybe you get one of these in every draft pack. Still, these cards, considering they have Mountain Forest written on them, they have some usefulness for Commander. Especially in budget builds, they are definitely your budget shocks, your budget original duels. But, I mean, they're useful. You get it. Tidepool Turtle. Who put a pool on this turtle's back? 4 mana, 2/5, 3 mana, scry. Seems underwhelming.
As long as the turtle's okay with it.
I guess seems to be. It's hard to tell, actually, if a turtle's bothered. Sunbathing Rootwalla, a colorless and a green for a 2/2 creature lizard. This is obviously a reference to both Basking Rootwalla and Rootwalla. But for 3 and a green, until end of turn, it gets +1/+1 for each basic land type among lands you control. Activate only once each turn. once again, another like draft all-star. But also, take a look at that. It's Grizzly Bear. That used to be a draft all-star. This is a solid 23rd pick. You'll never be disappointed to have like a 2-mana 2/2 in your deck as just solid, creature. And then, oh, what's this? It can get up to +5/+5 until end of turn. Once this, you can activate it at instant speed. Sure, you can only do it once a turn, but you can do it on your opponent's turn during the block. You can do it on your turn during the attack. You can attack with it, see how blockers go, decide if you want to use it or not, and then use your mana after combat. So sure, this costs more to activate than other Root Wallas in the past, but it gives a much bigger boost. I think this card's neat. Commander play. I mean, probably not. Everything I said about 2-mana 2/2s does not apply to Commander. 2-mana 2/2 in Commander is not interesting on its own merits. Not useful on its own merits. We've got Hexbane Tortoise, a 3-mana 3/2 turtle with Ward 2 and Enlist. I hate that this is a turtle with 2 toughness. Look at that. Wait a second. I think that's the turtle. The Hexbane Tortoise is maybe the little one on its head. You see that? There's a little one on its head.
Huh. The big one's wearing it as a hat.
Yeah, the big one is the one that it enlisted, because that one's got a bajillion toughness. Look at it, it's got a continent on its back. But that one, I think, is our Hexbane Tortoise. Boy, unfortunate then the Enlist only adds the creature's power to this one, because it's going to say the lowest toughness turtle maybe ever. Boy, this card sucks. Mossbeard Ancient is a 7-mana 7/7 trampler. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life. Seems good in draft as the top of the curve, but is otherwise worthless. Weatherseed Treaty, another read ahead card, which I generally like the flexibility, but this one's 3-mana, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Putting lands onto the battlefield from your library is always strong. Tapped, untapped, basic, non-basic, whatever, they're always good, and this is only slightly above curve for only the first mode. Second mode, make a Saproling. Well, that's a little underwhelming. Third mode, Domain, target creature you control gets +X/+X and gains trample until end of turn, or X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. So in a 5-color deck, honestly, this seems great when you add in that third ability there. Obviously you play Cultivate, you play Kodama's Reach, those cards are absolute staples, but this is like the third card I would consider, where if you're wanting to ramp on 3 and you're going for all 5 colors, play this. Sure, you only make a Saproling on the second turn, but then you get a big boost out of it. Saprolings can be chump blockers, they can be the targets of your domain thing next turn. I think this card's good. Queen Alanal of Ruadak. So I've been recommending this one to Happy Batty for her Marath deck.
Oh, yeah.
It's a green, a white, and a white for a legendary creature, Elfin Noble. It's a star, and its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. If one or more creature tokens will be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. So this is a token doubler in a deck that's mostly making 1/1 tokens, and a big creature at the same time, because, it's a Beast of Burden. It can get very large. It's a Scion of the Wild. All for 3 mana. You're very happy to see that, I think. Although, we really want the stained glass one. The stained glass one is way prettier.
Well, we got more packs to open.
Yeah, it could happen. Yavimaya Iconoclast, 2-mana 3/2 Trampler. When it enters the battlefield, it is kicked, it gets +1/+1, gains haste until end of turn. Seems alright. Tatiova, Steward of Tides. Well, we saw this card already, but we got the stained glass art this time. Not foil, but it's neat. Yavimaya Coast, this is great. I don't know if I still had one from back in the day, so, I still want one of each of the Pain lands. They're still good, and I don't think I have one of each of them, and so cool. And then my foil is Argivian Cavalier, 3-mana 2/2 with Enlist. When it enters the battlefield, you create a soldier token. I wish it said whenever it enlists, you create a soldier token. Also, I just realized, That's an Orc Knight. What the heck? Don't see a lot of white orcs out there. Weird. Okay. Well. And we got a Merfolk token. Cool Merfolk token. Okay. Every pack's going to get a little faster, because every pack is going to have fewer cards we haven't seen before, fewer cards that I feel compelled to say a few things about, because I just have things to say about almost every card. I just do. So, if that's not what you're into, I'm sorry. I know that, you know, my viewership is small, and it's probably going to stay small.
No need to
But if you like just talking about Magic cards, and if you like the designs of these cards and these sets, I'm into it. I'm going to talk about it a lot. We have a lot of discussion here. Feel free to comment if you disagree with me on any of these things. I've got some, hot takes on some of these cards, I think. And, yeah. In fact, okay, Deathbloom Gardener. This card's super interesting. I don't remember seeing a card like this before. A 3-mana 1/1 with Death Touch that can tap for 1 mana of any color. Huh. Okay, so on the one hand, it's Birds of Paradise. On the other hand, it's like one of those snakes or something. Or there's an elf that's just like a 1/1 with Death Touch. So on the one hand, unfortunately, you pay 1 mana for birds. You pay 1 mana for the Death Touching elf. And this is 3 mana. But you put them together. Birds doesn't have Death Touch. Birds doesn't have power. It can't deal damage. This is potentially a scary blocker or even a scary attacker. And it's a mana dork. But do you want your mana dorks coming out on turn 3? I don't know. So I think this is a personal decision you have to make. And for me, I have a Raga-Draga deck that I just built. So I'm hoping to get a foil one of these, and I'm going to try it out. And it's probably good there, because there it'll be a 3/3 with Death Touch, and it'll untap when it attacks. And that seems great. I need more of my mana dorks to have abilities like Death Touch in order to be more relevant. So that's a comment I had some things to say about. This one, I don't know what it does. 3 mana for a 3/1, enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. Well, there are decks that like that for sure. 3 is a fair amount to get. And then for 5, an exile Soul Tender from your graveyard. Return another target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That seems actually pretty weak. I thought it was going to go to the battlefield. Maybe tapped would be fair, but to your hand, it seems to suck. Semi-Herbalist. They specifically put it in here for the Enlist deck, so you can tap it and add 2 power. Seems good and limited. And, I mean, actually, here's the good part. In white, repeatable source of Scry. Maybe that's the thing you need. I don't know. Maybe. Could be good, I guess. But hard is a stretch. Crystal Grotto. Enters the battlefield, you scry 1. It comes in untapped. I would have expected this kind of like common to come in tapped. Taps for colorless, or 1 in tap. Add 1 mana of any color to your... add 1 mana of any color. People don't say mana pool anymore, I guess. So, isn't this like Shimmering Grotto or some others like this, but also you get to scry 1? So isn't it a strictly better version of a previous card that people don't play? So, if you were playing that bad card that people don't play, now you can play this slightly less bad card that people don't play. Great. Frostfist Strider. So I have a giant tribal deck, and I did look up in this set to see if there are any giants in it, and this is the only one. He's 3 blue for a 4/4 elemental giant with ward 2. Kind of medium so far. When Frostfist Strider enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. So that's a great ability, except that it only triggers when it enters the battlefield. Only that one time. If it was like whenever it attacks or the beginning of your upkeep or something like that, then it'd be very strong and I'd be interested in playing it. As is, I think it doesn't quite make the cut. Even in Giant Tribal, which the bar is pretty low on. Inscribed Tablet, I didn't get a close look at this card before. 1 in tap, sack it, reveal the top 5 cards of your library, put a land card from among them into your hand, and the rest of them of your library in a random order. If you didn't put a card in your hand this way, draw a card. So you do, okay. So you do have to reveal the cards, so that if there is a land there, you have to put it in your hand. There's no like, oops, I didn't find one, so I'll just draw a mystery card. You have to reveal it. You have to prove it. So this is 2 mana to draw a land, or failing that, any card. Where's this good? I don't know. Eggs? Maybe? A deck that's all about like 1 mana artifacts and sacking them for things, and maybe it's good in a deck that plays very few lands and like lots of artifacts, because this can help you get out of mana screw for only 1 to cast and 1 to activate. So you can like start with a 1-lander and get out of it because of this. But I think those decks are playing a lot more hardcore than this. So I think it could be good in decks that are too good for it. Yoshia declares war. I know very little about Yoshia. 2 mana with read ahead. Create a 0/2 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying named Ornithopter. I like Ornithopter, but it's usually free. Tap any number of untapped artifacts you control. When you do, Yoshia declares war, deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker. Okay, so that could be a big ping. And up to 1 target artifact you control becomes a creature with base power and toughness for 4 until end of turn. Seems fine, I guess. I'm not sure that any of those effects are strong enough for Commander, though. So who knows. Linebreaker Bailoff. This one has little elves riding on his back. And there's flowers and stuff. So 5 mana with Enlist. It's a 4/5. And it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So this is one of those cards where, once again, in Limited, I think this card is good enough to play regardless of Enlist. And then they throw on Enlist as well. But Enlist is a bad mechanic, so I don't think this card makes the cut in probably any Commander deck. Najal, the Stormrunner, already saw it, already liked it. Stronghold Arena. I've heard some people say that this is like one of, if not the best cards in this set for Commander. But the problem is, you can only play it in a deck that is black and green and white. An Abzan deck, 4-color, 5-color deck. Even though the kicker is not very strong, it gains you some life, but whatever. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to its mana value. So it's Dark Confidant crossed with like Coastal Piracy or Reconnaissance Mission. So you can draw multiple cards in a turn, but you lose life off of it, and hence the life gain there. If you're playing Abzan colors, in theory, you could be playing a lot of life gain, and then maybe that drawback's not so bad. I actually was really excited to play this in my black-white life gain deck, until I realized I had to be playing green too. So this could be a really good card if you're playing Abzan and I'm not. Ooh, got a foil rare here, and it's actually one that we pulled in our sealed event. 2 and a blue for Aether Channeler, the creature human wizard. That's a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, you choose 1. Create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. Return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or draw a card. That's a great selection of abilities. I think this is good in Wizard Tribal. I think this is good in Blink. I think this has its uses, and anything that synergizes heavily with it, I think this is a good card. And Soldier Token. Squee! They used to have them the other way around, where it was facing out, so it'd be like, instead of, and then you see 2 cards at the same time. Although this card's always a basic land, it seems. Squee! Glad he's back. He's not that great anymore, but whatever. And this card's not interesting. And this card, what I do like about this card, you get to kick a horse. Even though in the art it looks like the horse is kicking you, you can kick a horse. And that's funny to me. But 4 mana for a 3/3 with kicker. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked... It's a Phyrexian horse, so kind of. Mm-hmm. It's like a zombie horse, but they didn't put zombie on it, because they want Phyrexians. But when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you make a 1/1 soldier token. For 1 and sack another creature, Phyrexian Warhorse gets +2/+1 until end of turn. If this thing had like lifelink or something like that, this card would be great. Without it, I think it's good in draft. Mesa Cavalier, another human knight that looks like it could be a Pegasus. There's actually a lot of Pegasuses in Magic, in the art and not on the cards. So I've brainstormed a Pegasus deck before, and it's always disappointing because like there's so many Pegasi in Magic, and most of them aren't Pegasus creatures. They're just underneath a knight. Bummer. You know what? Someone should design a card that's like, whenever you cast a knight spell, you create a Pegasus token. And then like whenever you attack with a knight, you can tap a Pegasus to give it flying and +1/+1 until end of turn. That seems pretty good to me. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, this one gains 2 life. This is good in draft once again because a flying 2-power creature for 3 is always good in draft. Furious Bellow gives +3/+0 on first strike and scry 1. Actually, once again, good in draft. Garna, Blood Fist of Keld. I remember thinking this was good, but I don't remember the specifics. So, colorless, black, red, red for a 4/3 legendary creature, human berserker. She's back from the last Dominaria. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, Garna, Blood Fist of Keld deals 1 damage to each opponent. This card seems great. So, you just play creatures that die, and maybe they come back a lot. Maybe that's what you're doing. You play creatures, you attack with them, and they die. You draw a card. If they die any other way, they deal 1 damage to each opponent. It's a 4-mana 4/3. Like, this seems like it could be a fun commander. We're just like reckless, violence. And I think those are fun. Join Forces. I remember it being a little underwhelming. Oh, you know what? No, it is 3 mana instant untap up to 2 target creatures. They each get +2/+2 until end of turn. That's not that bad. Joint Exploration, 2 mana for an instant kicker for green. Scry 2, then draw a card. Oh, 2 mana for an instant where you get to scry 2 and then draw a card? That's not bad. It's like a extra opt, a bonus opt. I mean, it costs a little more than opt, but that's what I mean. Opt plus. If this spell was kicked, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of decks where I can imagine that being useful. So, cool. Oh, hey! Queen All-in-All of Ruidoc, the stained glass version. So, you got your wish.
Oh, nice.
So, I will happily trade this to you, although, of course, you could find a foil one somewhere.
Yeah.
But I'll still happily trade this to you.
I'll get a bundle. I might.
You could draw it. So, sure, we can wait a little bit. Aaron, Benalia's Ruin. I learned from the lore video I watched today that Aaron is Danitha Capashen's dad. So, Aaron is actually a Capashen from Benalia. And that's why he's the Ruin. I guess he was probably the king of Benalia. And now he's Phyrexianized. But oh well. He's a 3 mana 3/3 legendary creature, Phyrexian human, with Menace. 3 mana 3/3 with Menace is not bad. And for a white and a black, come on. White and a black, sacrifice another creature. Oh, and tap. Sacrifice another creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. That's not bad. It doesn't, spark my inspiration in particular, but that's not bad. Defiler of Faith. So this is the white Defiler. I really, really want the green Defiler. I really want the red Defiler. But the white Defiler is also quite good. For one thing, because white plays a lot of permanent spells. Another thing, white gains a lot of life. So if you're paying life to reduce mana, you can gain that life back easy. No worries. And partly because the benefit isn't like gaining a little bit of life. It's not like destroying an enchantment or some weak sauce like that. It's making a 1/1 soldier token, which is not a weak effect, I'm telling you. They can chump block, they can attack, they can swarm, you can double up the tokens with Anointed Procession. You can give all kinds of like combat bonuses to it. This is good. 5 mana, 5/5 with Vigilance, and it makes your spells cheaper, and it makes you soldier tokens. This card's great. And the foil that I get is Battlewing Mystic. It's a colorless and a blue for a 2/1 with flying. It has kicker for a red. It's a bird wizard. When Battlewing Mystic enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. This card might be good to some people, but I don't like it. Okay, hold on. We got a list card that is a rare, although it's not one I've ever seen before. And it's from Dragons of Tarkir, and it's holding somebody's head. It's a Naga wizard holding somebody's head. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 with Exploit. That's why it's holding a dead guy's head. When Profaner of the Dead exploits a creature returned to their owner's hands, all creatures your opponents control with toughness less than the exploited creature's toughness. Okay, I could see that you could have a really tough creature, sack it, and then bounce a lot of stuff. And it's always one-sided, so that's not bad. 4 mana, 3/3 with upside. Okay, solid. That said, I think this is about where I feel like taking a break. So, brief intermission from me. You might be back immediately, or I might upload this as a 2-parter. It's an hour and a half long already. I'm uploading this in multiple parts. In fact, hey, I'll just tell you, I'll be honest with you here. Might be a 3-parter.